All right, well, let's get started. Welcome everyone to Amplify DU. This is the third year of the Amplify program. My name is Dominic Green. I am Senior Director of Chapter Development for Delta Upsilon headquarters. And I will do a little more further introduction in a second. But thank you for joining us. Excited to have you here. I know for a lot of you, you're either about to start school, you've already started school, you've already started recruitment. So we want to start this program to really kind of talk about to get you as much assistance, guidance, and really talk about the long-term goals and plans for a clear recruitment strategy for your chapter. So I will let my co-presenter introduce himself.
Awesome. Thanks, Dominic. Hey, everyone. My name is Hayden Ron. I am a graduate of the University of Oregon and a member of the Oregon chapter from 2016. My DU experience post-undergraduate was 5.5 years on the headquarters staff, serving in a multitude of different roles, from leadership consultant all the way to director of growth for the organization. So spent a lot of time working with our undergraduate men in our chapters around growth and recruitment. So really excited to be with you all here tonight. And Amplify is one of my favorite programs to be able to provide you all. Currently now, I serve as the Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement at Oregon Health and Sciences University Foundation up here in Portland, Oregon. But really excited to be spending some time with you all tonight.
It's good to work with my fellow Duck. We were obviously not in the chapter together, but my experience, I had, much like Hayden, was super involved as an undergrad. I actually did IFC recruitment, but then previously, much like Hayden, I was the director of growth and recruitment when I first got on staff about 20 years ago. So I am back in kind of working with all of our chapters with recruitment and growth and starting up our new chapters as well. So excited to talk about this program. Recruitment is the lifeblood of the chapter. And this is, as Hayden and I, we love talking about recruitment. So this is a great opportunity for us to share kind of our experiences, but also, like I said, help you all out as you have questions along the way. So feel free to raise your hand. If you want to, in the apps button, if you want to raise your hand, then we can call on you as we get started. Okay, perfect. Okay. Why Amplify DU? Like I said, this is a program that was designed, it kind of came out of the pandemic era of what can we do to best support our chapters? We had done educational programming at our recruitment symposium at the Regional Leadership Academy. We had done some light programming at Leadership Institute, but we realized we needed a specific focused program just on recruitment and wanted to make sure that we sharpen your skills, but also not just focus on the 1 or 2 week model and then be done for the year, right? So Hayden, what else kind of came from the birth of this program?
Yeah, I think really it came out, Dominic, as you mentioned, out of the pandemic. I think that there was a need for chapters at the time, and really continues to be a need for chapters to have really specific and attainable recruitment training during the summer leading into the school year, and really helping undergraduates, chapters know what recruitment's going to look like both in the fall, but then also throughout the entire school year, not just, like you said, focus on the 1 to 2 years. I think the other cool part is it allowed for us to take a deep dive into recruitment numbers and allow for chapters to have a better idea of, from the headquarters level, where we expect our chapters should be recruiting and how many men they should be recruiting throughout the entire year, which, Dominic, I'm sure you'll touch on a little bit. So it really gave us a good touch point there. And then I think lastly, through the program, allowed for us to have a lot of great one-on-one coaching with undergraduate men and recruitment VPs and even chapters as a whole. Saw a lot of good success stories, which you all will be hearing here in a couple Amplify DU sessions from our Boise State chapter, who really used the Amplify DU program as a launching point into their significant growth that they saw a couple years back. So that was really cool to see that the program has to offer.
All right, so perfect. So obviously,
that was really cool to see them and a few other chapters really take this on.
Perfect. Looks like there's a little bit of feedback there. Obviously, so let's get focused on the importance of recruitment. Obviously, importance for growth. to grow our chapters, both as a fraternity overall. We want to make sure that impact, right? What does recruitment look like for us, not only in our fraternity and sorority communities, our local communities? Obviously, the more men and the people we more recruit, we have more opportunities to impact our local community, but also just a more of an opportunity to do really good work and really focus on why we're here in the end, right? Is to build better men, right? So it's a really opportunity to bring in some high quality individuals to really make the best out of this program for the fraternity. Sorry. Okay, so talk about this. Hayden talked about recruitment, chapter goals, and retention goals. Next week, all of you on this will get specific goals based off the last 2 years of recruitment. We're going to look at both give you an initial goal and a stretch goal. So we want to be able to kind of give you, going into recruitment, like what is your goal for the entire year, right? So some chapters might focus heavily on fall recruitment. Some chapters have more focus on spring recruitment because they're on a deferred model, whatever that looks like for you all. But what is a growth? Really want to create a growth goal for the chapter to see like where do you want to be in 2 years and how can we help get you there, right? So with your recruitment coaches and support from IHQ staff is what can we do to help get you to reach your goals? Sometimes, like I said, sometimes we want to be able to not only initial goal, but also what's your stretch goal, right? Like it's possible sometimes you'll say, well, that number seems a little high, but like we could do it if we put a little more effort in, if we get more of an overall chapter involvement engagement effort, right? So what are those things? And we'll talk more about that in the next Amplify session, but you'll be getting your goals before next week's Amplify. And you also will be getting an email about who your recruitment coach is as we move forward. So our 4 recruitment coaches are myself and Hayden, as well as Russell Briggs and Tommy Valenti, both from the Boise State chapter, who, as Hayden mentioned, they're also going to be sharing their recruitment journey with us. But Tommy and Russell are both 2 new leadership consultants who, to give you a little quick preview, going into the fall a few years ago when Russell was the recruitment VP for the chapter, he went through the first version of Amplify, and the chapter went from 12 guys. And I think, Hayden, they recruited about 30 plus guys, 35 guys that year. So a pretty successful year. So 12 guys recruited 35 guys, and then the chapter was able to go from there. And it was from everything he learned at Amplify to be able to take that back to say, hey, this is possible. We can make this happen if we put the right effort in and really get our members excited. And like I said, they came back with 12 guys. They had a huge graduating class, but they were able to make it happen. So we're going to hear from Russell and Tommy in a couple of weeks about their experience and what that can do to help all of you. So just a little bit of the model. Sorry, apologize. The dates are a little bit off on here, but there's 3 webinars. So it's the next 3. So it's this week. It's next Tuesday. So next Tuesday is the next webinar. So that would be the 29th, and then it'll be September 6th. So I apologize I didn't update the dates on this one. We'll have the group meeting will be with your recruitment coach. So if your recruitment coach will work with the 6 or 7 of you that are in his group to schedule a group meeting to kind of talk about. So we're going to do our best possible to group like chapters with each other to be able to support each other. So chapters that have similar kind of recruitment models, similar size chapters, or similar types of institutions to be able to kind of play off each other and also like share best practices with each other. So good opportunity to do that. And I'll send all that information out over the weekend before Tuesday's session. Perfect. All right, so we talked about it's recruitment season. We're going to get started, talk about the program. For some of you, recruitment's already started, right? I think last week, a couple of our schools already started last week, and they're already very heavily in recruitment right now. For some of you are about to start, some of you might start tomorrow, right? Whatever that looks like, we want to talk right now is what you can do to make sure you're doing the right things that need to happen if your recruitment session is right now. I mentioned before, though, this program is designed more than just to be a Band-Aid for the formal recruitment, the 1 to 2 week formal recruitment season. It's really designed kind of for the long game, but we really want an opportunity for you to, like I said, recruitment season, it's game on, right? So we're going to be using a lot of sports analogies today, so just bear with us. But it's a good opportunity to talk about what can you do to prepare your chapter? What are you doing for training, right? How are you making sure that the guys in your current chapter are prepared to have those conversations with potential new members, right? For a lot of cases, I know my chapter, when I was in the chapter, we had heavily did training and preparation for the people who had never been been through recruitment on the other side. Does that make sense? So anyone that had joined last year, that if this is their first time being recruiters, we spent a lot of heavy time not only practicing but really preparing and really talking about why we're DUs. And I have a little slide here in a second that talks about what that looks like for you. We also want to make sure that there's clear roles, like who is responsible for recruitment and who can be assistants. We've noticed this before for some, and Hayden and I've seen this year after year after year. Often the chapter puts all of their eggs in one recruitment basket, meaning that one recruitment chair is going to be the savior for the entire chapter, right? How do we make sure we get more people involved, more people engaged? If you have a recruitment committee, people on your committee have specific roles. Someone's doing logistics, someone's doing social media, someone's managing the names list, someone is reaching out to guys, someone's picking up potential new members that bring them to your events if transportation is a thing. What are those roles? And then also, how do you have a clear, well-communicated plan? Often we've seen this before where recruitment chairs have a clear plan, but it's not communicated to the chapter. The chapter doesn't know what's going on, and it's a little bit of a cluster as far as what do they need to know to be able to show and be participatory, but also just to be there, right? How do you make sure your strongest recruiters know when they need to be there and why they need to be there? Because sometimes some chapters, as Hayden and I both know this, some guys don't realize they're strong recruiters until you actually be like, Hayden, you're a fantastic recruiter and I need you to be here to help close the deal on these guys. Hayden, I don't know if you have any other things to chime in on, like key things, what they need to know going into like recruitment, at least the key things. We'll dive more into this in a lot of future sessions with Amplify, but I just wanted to see if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, I think to follow up on that last piece, it's really, really important for everyone to understand that everyone in the chapter has a role. There's going to be you all who might be kind of leading the charge of recruitment, but then there's also going to be the guys who really just need to show up and be a presence during events or during a meal. So I think it's important to remember that and to communicate that with the chapter. And I think the other piece is, and Dominic would echo this too, it's going to be a ton of work. This isn't, you just don't go into recruitment thinking you're going to go reach your goal and do it 50%. Chapters that are really successful put in a ton of work during recruitment and are constantly thinking about how they can build relationship and how they can build belonging and community with guys and potential new members during the process. And most of the time, if not all the time, the chapters who put in that work and really focus on building those relationships and really focus on the people aspect and understand that recruitment really is about people joining people are the ones that are really successful during recruitment. And we'll continue to go back to Boise State because they truly, truly put that at the forefront when they went from 12 guys and recruited 30 plus. And it really worked for them because they knew the work that they needed to do, and they knew that they really understood this aspect of relationship building, which we'll talk about and the importance of that when it comes to recruitment.
Hold on, this perfect. I think one thing, there's a lot of words on this slide, but ultimately, as part of the preparation, is in having conversations is really preparing the chapter to know what are you going to talk about, because I think a huge part of recruitment is conversation skills, and you need to be able to make that small talk, but what are you going to talk about, and realistically being able to have everyone in the chapter having their own DU story, right? Their own DU why do people join Delta Upsilon? Everyone's going to have a different recruitment journey in your chapter. I know for us, we used to, one of our biggest, most popular kind of recruitment training sessions was actually having everyone share their why, like why did they join, who did they meet, like what chapters did they check out, because I think sometimes some of people's recruitment journey can be interesting, entertaining. If you find out where people also checked out, but also like why, what was it about DU that made them join, right? It's like I said, 90% of the time it's going to be people join people, right? They, someone might say, oh, my dad is a DU, so I felt like I had to join, but I also really like the guys right now in the chapter, right? But so ultimately it's like, what are those whys? Is everyone on the same page? Do they know why the best 5 to 10 reasons to join your chapter, right? Or associate chapter? Everyone needs to be on the same page of like, what is your brand? What are you trying to sell? But also like, what do you guys do, right? I think often people in the recruitment process, potential members will ask you, look, what do you guys do? What are you known for? And people need, you all should be on the same page of talk. Everyone should be able to know, what does it look like? And why would someone join your chapter? But everyone should be on the same page of what that actually looks like, right? You know, can everyone articulate their why they joined, why they love being a DU, their favorite memories as a DU? You know, what's the best thing about being a DU? Because I think often people don't know how to articulate that, but that's what a lot of recruitment, and we'll talk more about this in Amplify, recruitment is often storytelling, right? It is people going or talking about their favorite experiences in the fraternity, and that's why they love this organization, and that's why they're fired up. I mean, the one thing I really loved about my chapter, we had a diverse chapter, a large chapter, with a lot of different interests, but when people talk about recruitment and why were passionate about the organization, their stories and their whys were different, but it was really unique that we had a lot of common bonds in place, and we all just kind of joined the chapter for the same reasons because our values truly aligned with what the chapter's values were and what DU's values were, but everyone had a different journey to get there, right? So couple things too, though, is just making sure though that people in the chapter can articulate the tough questions, right? Why wouldn't they want to join? If someone says, well, I can't afford it, I don't have time, my parents won't let me join, I don't want to get hazed, I don't drink, like how do you combat those questions, and how can the chapter be able to say, like, we have a clear answer and not a real answer, right? Not just a BS answer, right? What are those things that we can do to really support those people if they're on the fence? If they're like, because some people might just be on the fence about joining a fraternity, right? They might not be even on the fence in DU. Sometimes you need to hook them and help them understand why they want to join a fraternity. And then really with that also being said is then, why is DU still important to them? And I think that's where the first question of why did you join and why are you still here, right? Why is DU important to you can kind of be the start and the capstone of your overall training. These are just some basic questions. These are things that Hayden and I can do to help you in the training and the preparation of your chapters. But these are some basic things to make sure that everyone's on the same page, to make sure that you all have a clear plan, a clear vision of what you're looking for, and then what are you going to do? How are you going to find these people along the way? Perfect. All right, so we're going to get rolling into the next session, specifically the kind of what is 365 recruitment, and we're going to talk about the longer term action of what that looks like for you.
Awesome. Cool. So when we're thinking about this idea of 365 recruitment, it really is this idea that recruitment is happening every single day, year round. So traditionally, we're thinking about this idea that like recruitment only happens in the fall, recruitment only happens in the spring. And while yes, that can be true on your campus in the sense that we're only taking officially new members in the fall or the spring, the mindset has to shift to recruitment is all the time. We are constantly building relationship. We are constantly looking for potential new members. We're constantly looking for guys to join, even if it doesn't mean that they are joining in the middle of the semester. What we do know is that we're building relationships with them. And so we put up this screen of 4 different, clearly college head coaches who do recruitment very, very well and who do it constantly all year round. They are prime examples of finding the right relationships, the right guys to bring into their programs and allow for those programs to flourish. And these guys aren't doing it just 2 weeks out of the year. They're not going in December leading up to early National Signing Day and saying, hey, for these 2 weeks, we're going to go recruit 30 guys to join our team and that's going to be it. No, they are doing it from even when the guys they're recruiting are in high school or freshmen in high school, even before that, they are putting in the work and they're building the relationships constantly, right? Nick Saban doesn't build a dynasty at Alabama by just waiting for the final 2 weeks up till National Signing Day to get his recruitment class that year. What he's doing is he is putting in the work to build those relationships, getting guys to verbally commit, getting guys to be really interested in the program. But more importantly, what he's doing is he's building relationships with those individuals, right? So yeah, while he's telling them everything that Alabama has to offer and what Alabama can do, or Dabo's telling somebody, here's what Clemson can offer and all of that, what he's also doing is he is diving into that relationship and investing in making sure that that individual has a good relationship with not only him, but also other coaches, other players on the team, the program in general, the community, all the things that are really going to get that individual interested and keep them retained throughout the program. So as Dominic said, we use a lot of sports analogies. And I think when thinking about 365 recruitment, you think about college football recruiting, you think about college basketball recruiting, you think about just college recruiting as a whole. that they are constantly doing this, even if they can't officially sign somebody until National Signing Day. They don't wait around to make sure that there's interest there and there's relationships that are being built. Same way that you can't wait until the week before bid day in the fall to worry about who I'm recruiting. That work needs to be put in prior to that. You're done with fall recruitment, maybe. What's the next step in getting ready for spring recruitment? What relationships are you building now to make sure that you're prepared for spring? And so that's really this idea of what 365 recruitment is. It's not this idea of I'm giving bids out throughout the year. It's I'm building relationships every single day of the year. I'm adding to my names list. I'm constantly reaching out to guys. I'm constantly building relationship. And again, those are what the most successful recruiters are doing, whether or not it's these four or even chapters that we have who are really successful at recruiting. They're constantly building those relationships every single day with potential new members. Great. So yeah, and I think here's another few points on like why 365 recruitment is important to keep in mind. It provides, like I've said, the constant relationship building with a potential new member. It's a lot easier to understand Delta Upsilon. You see that fourth point for a potential new member to understand the chapter in the organization over a few months leading into the next semester rather than a few days during 2 weeks of recruitment. So keeping that in the back of your mind, it's a lot easier to feel more comfortable as you have more time. So don't get discouraged if there are guys that you're meeting 2 weeks from now who just didn't go through recruitment. You think that's a lost cause. The really mindset should be great. We have an entire semester to build a really good relationship so that when spring comes around and we hand them a bid because they're a great member and they clearly have shown interest, it's an easy yes for them to join because they've had that time to understand who we are and who the organization is. 365 recruitment keeps you and the chapter focused on adding that names list year round. So what we also find is all of a sudden recruitment's right around the corner, school starting, the semester starting, we should probably start adding names to our names list. And then you're like, I only know about 10 guys. Well, if you're doing 365 recruitment, you are constantly adding, hey, I met this guy in class. I met this guy at the gym. I met this guy at the library. This guy came up to me and said he just didn't have a really great experience. So he dropped his chapter and now he wants to potentially join DU because he just didn't like the new member experience. Great, let's keep adding those names to our list and let's start building those relationships and cultivating what that might look like for those guys within DU. The third point, it really allows for you to find the quality of man, because just like it's easier for a potential new member to better understand the organization and who the brothers are over a longer period of time, it is easier again to understand who somebody is over a long period of time on the chapter end as well. So this is where you can invite them to a handful of events, have more interactions, have dinner with them, meals, go to the gym. So again, it gives you that time and that space to really build that relationship and really know, hey, this is an individual we want part of our organization, and they feel the same way. And then it really just sets the chapter for success in reaching recruitment goals. I think this is really important because in Dominic and I's experience, somebody may say, man, we really failed during fall. Our goal was to recruit 20 guys. We only got 5. It's a failure of a year for recruitment because nobody really recruits in the spring, or why would you ever take guys in the spring? But when you switch that mindset to, hey, we've got an entire year to get our recruitment goal. So that means we're just going to have to really focus on getting more guys in the spring than we typically do. It really sets you up for success because now you're thinking through a year instead of through semesters. So you're saying, throughout this entire year, we need to make sure we're bringing in 25 to 30 new guys for a variety of different reasons. And so that means that just because fall might not have reached what it needed to, you still have that opportunity to reach your recruitment goals for the year because you're in the mindset that you're recruiting every single day. So that when spring rolls around, you said, hey, look, we put in a ton of work in the fall to build relationships with, let's say, these 20 to 25 guys, which we know that 15 to 17 of them are going to say yes. Now, instead of a spring being, hey, we're not doing any recruitment, your spring class is now 15 to 17. You add that on the 5 that you got in the fall, boom, you've reached your recruitment goal because your mindset has shifted to being more year round rather than just that one semester. So I think these are really important pieces to remember as you're thinking about 365 recruitment.
Perfect. Let's talk about recruitment zones. And this is where, when we get to each zone, Hayden and I are going to chime in on kind of best practices. So let's play off of that, right? So depending on when your primary recruitment model or primary recruitment period is, and for some chapters, it's great because your primary recruitment period is both equally strong in the fall and the spring, right? Fantastic, right? So if that's the case, that's it's good for you. But some campuses, it's very heavily based in the fall or heavily based in the spring, right? Depending on what that looks like. So there's 6 zones on here, really 5 zones for most chapters. The 6th zone is spring quarter for our quarter system schools. So our friends at Cal Poly and Oregon State right now, I think, are our 2 quarter system schools. We'll add Washington back in the fold as we move forward. But we're going to really focus on 5 of the 6 zones today to really talk about what that looks like. So beyond the fall period, but we'll go through every zone and what does that look like to best for you all to best prepare your chapter, but also what are some of the best practice. In some cases, there's going to be some redundancy, but I think this is where it's going to be really helpful for you to really start thinking the long term. Is that the one thing I'll tell you this, Hayden and I've seen this a lot where someone will put a week in for formal recruitment and then be so burned out and be like, I'm so done. I don't have time. I am fried because I put 2 weeks in during formal recruitment. If that's the case and that your recruitment chair is burned out or fried or doesn't want to recruit anymore, it's okay to get a new person elected. It's okay to have the recruitment committee take over. Like I said, this is where we're saying is not putting all your eggs in one basket in one recruitment chair. If that person doesn't want to continue recruiting after your formalized process, right? So that's the best piece of advice for you right now. So Hayden can hear me. Well, I can get on my soapbox for days talking about this topic. So sorry. What we're going to do is talk about summer. So here is, you're probably like, summer. So for some of you, you're still in summer. For some of you, you started school this week. You might start next week, or in some cases at Cal Poly and Oregon State, you start at the end of September, right? So what this looks like is at this point, now through the beginning of the school year or beginning of school year might have just started, we want to make sure that you're building a names list. Names list could be a variety of different ways. This could be friends of friends. This could be tapping your constituents. Like, how do we tap our alumni? How do we tap our friends? How do we tap the people that we know the best, that they know people that are coming to? I happen to be at Villanova right now. We have a new associate chapter here, so I'm just going to use Villanova as my example. How do we know? If we know people that are coming to Villanova, we need to ask our friends, ask our loved ones, ask our alumni, who do we know that's coming to Villanova this fall? So we can start building our names list going into the fall, right? So this is whether you use a Google form soon, we can actually start using the DU portal to build your names list. So we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. I'll teach you all how to use the portal to actually build your names list. But we want to know who's coming to your institution. How do we stay current on social media? How do we start spotlighting brothers of what amazing things they did over the summer or are currently doing over the summer? So it could be internships. It could be studying abroad opportunities. How do we make sure that we're showing potentially members who are looking at Instagram, who are looking at or doing their own research on what that looks like, right? And in some cases, for some of you, you have the ability to host smaller events, right? So this could be regional events. This could be events in your area. This could be, small cookouts, barbecues, whatever that looks like. It doesn't have to be an expensive opportunity to do stuff over the summer, but you can maintain some activity by doing brotherhood events and inviting potential members to that, right? I know a lot of chapters will try to get together a couple times in the summer and they might play flag football. They might go to a baseball game together. They might do some smaller scale things and be able to invite potential new guys who might be people that you were referred to by your constituents. Hayden, anything else to add here for summer?
I think summer is a great opportunity. I've seen a lot of chapters capitalize on the, hey, I've got somebody who lives in the same town as you. Can you just go get a meal with them? Right? It doesn't even have to be a huge event, but it's knowing that, Dominic lives in LA and I've got a PNM who's coming up to school from LA and I know Dominic's home for the summer. Hey, Dominic, can you go grab dinner with this guy or whatever the case is? And so summer gives you that opportunity to do a lot of those informal pieces there. I think summer's another opportunity. A lot of guys stay in town, and there have been opportunities that I've seen where there might be a chance to table at an orientation fair or do something like that. And so that's where talking to people on campus and having good relationships with people on campus is good, just to see what the options are. They may say, no, we only do one table, but I have seen it where they say, sure, like you can come up and now I'm tabling as Delta Upsilon at this fair throughout the summer, because I have a couple guys who are there, and that's just adding to the names list. I think big thing on the names list is like any name is a good name to add on the names list. Don't try to overthink that. Don't be like, oh, I don't know if he'd be good. I don't know if he'd be good. The best way to do that is put the name on the list, because the more names you have, the better opportunity that you're going to find both the quantity and quality of guy that you want. And summer's a great place to do that.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, Hayden used that example. I was literally a product of summer recruitment. I met chapters at a summer orientation fair, got signed up for recruitment. And I was recruited throughout the summer before I even got to school, right? So did I join a chapter of the summer? No, but I at least had a lot of contact, and the chapter that made the biggest impression with me over the summer was actually DU, right? I checked out some chapters when I got to campus, or got to meet them in person. And some chapters, like I said, some chapters I didn't get a chance to. I didn't get a chance to meet in person. I was able to do that when I got back to campus, but there's something about DU's recruitment chair that really sold it for me. So it's a good opportunity. If you're already done with the summer and you're already going into the fall, just think about this stuff going into next year. And if you need assistance with creating a good strategic summer plan, that's something that I can help you with, of going into the summer, where this particular slide might be at the end of it might be at the last slide to think about, because you're already moved on to the fall. So, but just something to think about as you're preparing for the fall. So we're going to go now to early fall. So I'll let Hayden take the lead on the early fall slide, and then I'll chime in if I have other thoughts.
Awesome. So most of you are going to be in this phase right now, kind of that August, September phase. You got everyone's back on campus. Some of you may be going through a formal recruitment process. Some of you just might be going through your informal recruitment process, depending on what your IFC recruitment looks like in the beginning of fall. Clearly, you're going to see this on every slide. Grow your names list. This is an opportunity to continue to do that. Get involved with those other fairs that might be happening. I know Dominic is at Villanova, and I know they're participating in a fair, right? And that allows for them to, again, go find guys and go have that. Find, where guys typically hang out at the beginning of the school year and go to those places. Our first fall back, I think my junior year, we actually all got our recruitment shirts. We all met up at a house, and then we broke up into teams and went to all the freshman residence halls, all the dining halls, and just started meeting guys, passing out recruitment flyers, all of those pieces, getting numbers, passing out numbers, because we knew that was a great time to meet a lot of guys and a lot of potential members at that beginning of the fall. And we knew where a lot of them were concentrated. And specifically when it comes to freshmen, they just want to get to know guys. And so that's a great way to just talk to people, pass out your number, invite them to events, all the things that will help you just start that relationship. Great opportunity to start doing some training and coaching from you all to your chapter on kind of recruitment strengths and skill building. So how to have conversations, what does it look like to have a successful event, what type of questions should they be asking, what type of follow-up, everyone's roles and responsibilities, all of those pieces need to be happening in early fall. You're preparing for formal and primary recruitment classes, your event planning and preparation, you're finalizing budgets, your social media and marketing, your campus involvement, all of these things that as VPs of recruitment and recruitment leads, you need to start thinking about. If you haven't already, when the early fall comes, it's really about, are we ready? Are we prepared? Have we had a recruitment training? Do you guys know what they're supposed to do? Is our budget on track with where it needs to be? Are we on social media? I think social media is also a great way to do outreach. So is there like a class of 20, whatever they're going to be, 2027 page where I can start messaging people on Instagram and social media? One thing, and this actually came from Russell at an LI a couple years ago, that I think Boise State was doing, was they were actually going to other chapters, Instagram pages and social media pages in early fall and seeing what guys were liking their posts. And if it indicated that they were a freshman or unaffiliated, they would then follow them and send them a message as kind of a way to find more PNMs on a social media way that clearly indicates some interest in fraternity. And that organization may be the only organization they know. And so they took the approach of, hey, might as well go see if we can find a few other guys we can at least reach out to. But this is where you need to be engaged in social media. You need to be showing what the chapter's doing. This is a great opportunity to go do move-in day. I think she's on. Yeah, there you go, Stacy. I saw UT Arlington did some move-in day, so that was awesome to see. I saw Daryl post about that, so that's a great way to meet some guys as well, and really get them connected. Another cool thing about move-in day is a lot of time you'll meet the parents, and if you have a good relationship with the parents, they have a lot of influence on their child's decision as well. So think about, hey, if move-in day hasn't happened yet, can we reach out to the office that's in charge of that and get involved? I'd be shocked if they told you, no, we don't want the help there, to help move guys into the residence halls. And I think that goes into the campus involvement and engagement. So how can you just make a presence on campus in the early fall, let guys know that you're there? I think the biggest thing when I was in school as an undergrad, and what I tell guys all the time is go to where your potential new members are at. So don't get caught up in the, like, we need them to come to the house. We need them to come to this place. We need to go be a presence. So go have your meals on campus, go play football on campus, go play volleyball on campus, go do things in DU apparel. And while you're doing that, being actively involved and engaging with guys, inviting them to come play with you, start talking to guys. Those are all going to make a difference, specifically in early fall. Classes have started, maybe haven't started. It's syllabus week, all the things that that there's a lot of time on their hands. It's going to be really important for you all to go out there and be involved as much as possible, both in person and on social media.
Yeah, no, I will echo everything Hayden said. I would also, if these things are still going on, check out Welcome Week activities. Check out activities that your orientation office, new student family programs, whoever plans all the freshman activities. I was a former student affairs person, spent 15 years on a campus. I was director of student involvement. My office used to plan all the free fun stuff for freshmen, but those events were open to everyone, right? So we had carnivals, we had food truck festivals, we did like bingo, like we had the chapters who were smart, the fraternities would show up in letters, participate in those events, and just meet people, right? So find out what's going on your campus. You should be able to find this stuff on social media, your student activities, student involvement fair, orientation, new student program, all of those things that campuses are heavily engaged and want to entertain and distract their freshmen, right? So this is opportunities for you all to go to them, right? So but I'll echo everything that Hayden said. If you need help with any of these things, this is where your recruitment coach will come into play to kind of help you fill in the blanks or needing more specific ideas about these ideas. Perfect. All right, so now we're going to focus on mid to late fall. This is an interesting thing. Hayden and I were just laughing about this. Like the campus I'm currently at right now, they moved away from the term informal recruitment and call it free agency, right? So these guys potentially did not join in August or September. And for a lot of your campuses, there's still people out there that are unaffiliated, did not join. And then how do we continue to engage those people, right? So this is October, November, December. So this is thinking a little ahead. My chapter was very clear, though. After recruitment, usually the first or second associate member meeting we had, our recruitment chair would come in and actually have the conversation and say, hey, associate members, who are your friends in your residence halls? Who are your roommates? Who do you know from your classes? Asking the brand new people who their friends were, right? Because they were the people that might know the most people who are unaffiliated. And what we started doing is inviting those people to low stress, low key, informal events. And the list is right there of brotherhood events, right? What are the things that your chapter, associate chapters just love doing, right? Or what are the things they just do on a typical week to week, day to day, right? The day in the life of Delta Upsilon, right? People usually eat together. They might go to the rec center together. You guys can do all things together. You might be holding a service event, philanthropy events, all the things you all do. So it could be watch parties, right? This could be a wide variety of things. We have a lot of really good brotherhood event ideas on the DU website. It's under chapter resources. And if you scroll down to the bottom, it's under VP member ed, but there's a list, there's a 3-page document about brotherhood events. So I recommend using those as a lot of recruitment events. But this is where I think a lot of people don't like recruitment, right? There's a lot of people in the chapter where they might shine in informal recruitment because it doesn't, that there's the pressure and the stress is gone. And realistically, you are continuing to, as Hayden said, adding people names to the chapter, but you're continuing to build relationships and continuing to invite people, like I said, as you go along, right? So this is where making sure the chapter associate chapter has a master chapter calendar. So if you know what's going on, you have these things already scheduled. So if you meet someone in class, be like, hey, we're actually doing like a spike ball tournament, tomorrow. Do you want to stop by? Do you want to stop by our event, right? So whatever that looks like, you're always going to know. Usually Tuesday nights, all the guys usually play pickup basketball at the rec center, right? And it could be something where like every Thursday night the chapter goes to the pizza place right down the street. So you all can create traditions or specific things that guys just like doing, and then invite potential new members to that. Hayden, other thoughts on kind of free agency or informal recruitment as we go in? Yeah.
Yeah, this is the time that you are setting yourself up to be successful in spring. So I think a couple things, depending on your campus, I know that every campus looks different. But if you're a campus that allows for bids to happen whenever, this is bid during this time if you feel like you can, so they can join that spring class. If you're a campus that, hey, we can't actually officially bid till spring and we'll get in trouble, all of those pieces, this is where you're setting yourself up to say, okay, by the time spring rolls around and this guy goes through recruitment, we are 98% sure that he's going to say yes the moment we give him this bid. Awesome. This is the time that you get yourself to say, hey, what does spring look like? What relationships can we build in an informal way? And again, it doesn't have to be stressful. This is not, I think most recruitment guys will be done with fall recruitment, get to October, November, December, and say, hey, during a chapter meeting, I've seen it, during a chapter meeting, hey, Dominic, what's your update from the recruitment side? I don't really have anything.
I'm
right?
done. Yeah.
I'm done, right? Like job here is done. And sometimes this is coming from guys who recruited like 3 guys in the fall, and you're like, your job is far from done, right? And so that's where it's like Dominic can sit there and be like, hey, I know it's not stress. We've got some informal thing. We're actually going to have a couple guys, P&Ms come to play basketball with us, come out, right? We're actually going to go grab dinner with a few of these guys, right? It's super, super informal, but it's setting you up for success. I think going back to kind of the college recruiting aspect of it, this is the time frame where you're saying, hey, in the spring, if I want to go get 20 guys, in October, November, December, I should be able to confidently by the end of that say that I've got half of those guys confirmed who are going to join in the spring. That doesn't mean I bid promised if you can't do that. I get it. That doesn't mean that you've given them a bid if you can't do that, but it's simply saying I'm confident that at least 10 to 12 guys going into the spring are going to say yes. What does that do? One, that's a morale boost. I already got half the class, half my goal going into the spring because I've put in this work in these 3 months. Second, it makes spring recruitment so much easier because now you're not going into spring saying, I need 20 guys. You're going into spring saying, I need to focus on 10 guys, 8 to 10 guys, right? Or maybe even more while still continuing these relationships with somebody else. So this is really, really an important time. I think it gets lost, right? Because it's like post recruitment. Now we're doing AME. Now we, have finals and all of this. But it's also a really easy time to build those relationships and really allow, going back to this idea, it allows for you to get to know guys in different settings and allows for them to get to know DU, right? And Dominic kind of said, it's like, hey, he didn't join in the summer. He didn't join in the fall. Right, Dominic? Am I correct in that? Yeah. But you had that fall to really informally get to know which chapter was where you wanted to go, and ultimately DU was the right place. And so Dominic's a product of, hey, this is really important that you all just don't say August, September's over. We're not going to do anything in October, November, December, but instead say we're going to do a lot of these informal things that are going to set us up for success come January, February.
Yeah. Just pro tip, and Hayden knows this is one of my soapbox moments, is I would recommend if your normal officer cycle is November to November, December to December, I would recommend even recruiting your recruitment chair a little early. So either that person or people, right? Some chapters have 2 VP recruitments, is that they can get started on this stuff earlier, right? So you don't have to wait. You can't wait till January, because often there are many chapters, I'm not going to name the names, that often wait until the very last chapter meeting of fall semester to have elections. So there's no way for the new VP recruitment to get started on any of this stuff if his predecessor didn't start working on this stuff in the fall, right? So please, whether it's positional or not, is really emphasizing your chapter that we need to continue to do informal things, do all the free agency things, whatever it is, to convince your chapter that you don't have to call it recruit. If you don't call it recruitment, often people will show up to things. And honestly, a lot of times guys in our chapter were getting recruited through these types of events. And then after like the third event, they're like, oh, you guys are rushing me, right? Oh, that's like the third, fourth time they hang out with us. They're like, oh, you all have been recruiting me this whole time. And we're like, correct. Yes. We have, because once again, it's friend raising, right? It's, you meet these guys, you introduce them to your friends, you introduce them, you meet him, you make him your friend, you introduce him to your friends, you introduce them to the fraternity. Often you can do the first 3 steps and people don't even realize they're getting recruited. They just think they're hanging out with their friend, and then realize, actually, we want you to join our brotherhood, right? So these are things Hayden and I could talk about this zone for 4 hours, but we want to make sure though that you all really, however fall recruitment turns out, even if you absolutely kill it and hit your recruitment goal, it's important that you all continue to do this so you can be ready for the spring.
Yeah. I think too, this is really important for those groups who have deferred recruitment. And I think I saw the name, I think Seton Hall's on this list because I've worked with you guys and getting started up, and there's some deferred recruitment. But in working with chapters with deferred recruitment, this is actually a really great time to say, okay, this is where I have to put in all the work to be successful come the spring. You may bring in some guys in the fall, those transfer students, a few sophomores who are really great, right? So it's a smaller fall class. But for the deferred recruitment chapters, it's really about how do I use this time frame to set myself up for spring recruitment. And so to Dominic's point, is that changing when guys are getting elected to just all on this list? Like, what informal things are we bringing guys to? How are we just setting those goals? How are we getting guys incredibly interested even before spring starts? Because that's what other groups are doing. And some do it really well. And I worked with a few groups who really took that idea and switched it. And they were like, yeah, that actually worked really well for us because we were able to meet a lot of these guys. And we just didn't wait. We weren't just like, hey, they'll eventually build a relationship with us when they come January. Because what was happening was other organizations were doing that when DU wasn't. And then ultimately at the end of the day, they had a better relationship with them than DU. So if you're a deferred recruitment campus, this is huge for you to really think about, how am I interacting and growing relationships with the freshmen in the right way so that come January, February, it's a lot easier because you already have those relationships built.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when I worked at a campus that had deferred recruitment, the chapters did it well. The joke on campus was it was actually deferred joining and not deferred recruitment, because by the time they got to January, they already knew where they're going to join. So it was a very clear, because chapters did such a great job in the fall. All right. Perfect. We're going to move to early spring, which some of this stuff might be a little redundant. Hayden, if you want to take the lead on this list, we were just talking about in deferred recruitment. So
great. Yeah. Yep. So January, February, guess what, guys? You're going to want to grow your names list. That again will continue to happen in all of these quadrants. Talked about deferred recruitment or deferred joining, so preparing for that formal primary recruitment class if you need to. But again, ideally, you've put in a lot of that work in that kind of late fall period to where this makes it a lot more like deferred joining. I think for groups who aren't deferred and groups where it's like mainly guys join in the fall, what you see a lot of the times is we just don't recruit in the spring for a lot of different reasons. But I've always taken the mindset of, hey, there's still guys out there and you're competing actually against less chapters because a lot of chapters don't recruit, right? So I've been on campuses where it's like, hey, there's actually a spring recruitment happening and there's actually guys who are interested, and really only 3 IFC groups are wanting to take guys this spring. And so if we do this right, we can actually increase our numbers and find the right guys. So it's utilizing the referrals you got from AMs. It's asking, hey, IFC, do you have any no bid lists? Again, are there fares coming from the we're coming back from the break. Is there an involvement fair we can get engaged with? It's what are we doing on social media? All of those pieces that's happening. And then similar to the fall, we're refreshing on training, we're refreshing on skill building. What is our event planning? What are the things that we need to prepare for? What does our budget look like? And to Dominic's point, if you're inputting a new VP, the last chapter meeting that is happening December 2nd, and you all have finals the next week, and then you go on break, there is no time for any of this to happen for him. But if you're implementing that at the middle to early November, at least there's some time there to do some of that planning, and you're not waiting there. So again, early spring, it's huge for the deferred campuses because that's when you're going to get a bulk of your guys, but it's equally as important for those campuses where fall might be the primary recruitment time because there's an opportunity to still find guys out there. And again, setting expectations that it might be a little bit lower if as far as PNMs that are out there, but you also might be competing with less chapters. And really there shouldn't be, because I know that 5.5 years working with groups, I know that sometimes it's the stigma of, oh, we don't want to be the weird group taking the spring class. And it's like, again, I joined in the winter quarter, spring semester. If you're at a semester school, Dominic did. And it's like, no, it's actually a great opportunity to do that. And it's a great opportunity to bring in a lot of great guys middle of the year who really want to jump in and have an impact. They just didn't really feel they could in that first semester, which is totally okay. So really think about, hey, this is a great opportunity to even get 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys who are ready now after 6 months to really jump into a brotherhood and an experience like DU.
Perfect. Yeah. So a lot of repeat from the fall, but just a little bit different. I think this is also spring has a great opportunity too. If a lot of times it's the people that who you heavily recruited in the fall that are like, I need a semester, I need a break, I can't do this right now. Legit, their family won't let them join. This is where you can circle back. And this is why if you keep a really strong names list, you can go back to the people that gave you come back to me in January and I might do this, right? So like I said, keeping good record keeping to make sure that that's getting passed on from recruitment team to recruitment team.
Dominic, I think that's a great point. And yeah. I think the last thing here is spring can also be a time that if you've done it right and you've built good relationships and you've kept a good names list and you've kept good notes, spring I've seen be a time where chapters will actually hear back from a guy who joined another chapter, had a horrible new member experience. We saw this when we were expanding at Missouri. We probably got 10 to 12 guys who initially said, hey, I don't want to join DU, went through a horrible new member experience, dropped that experience and came back to us either later in the fall or in the spring because we had such a good relationship with them. We would see them around campus, say hi to them, all the things, and say, actually, I do want to join DU now. And so I've seen that be the case where, hey, I just didn't join you in the fall. I still want to be a part of a fraternity. I had a horrible experience. You all have been nothing but great to me and had a great relationship, but now I'm ready. I dropped that other experience. Here's what I know, what I want. And I think DU can offer that for me. So again, not only grow your names list, but keep that updated because you never know when somebody might come back around because they just did not have an experience that they were hoping for. And DU is actually the experience that they want.
And as Hayden said, relationship building is important. Whether they join or not, you're still being interfraternal and they could come back around. So very good point. Okay. All right, let's focus on mid to late spring. Similar to October, November, December, but a little bit different, right? So often this period of time, though, you are planning for the next academic year, right? So this is where, and depending on your campus, this is where you're going to know the early admission people, right? People might know of like October that they're coming to the University of North Carolina, right? You might know, and you're gonna know your next door neighbors from back home, someone who's on your baseball team, someone you played, you're on Model UN with, right? as you start recognizing that people are coming to campus, you can start your next names list for the next year and start adding people to those lists. This is a lot of where referrals come into play, where alumni, depending on how old your chapter is, but really, no matter what, is you want to continuously ask for referrals of like, who do you know that's coming to campus next year, right? So in some cases, people don't make a decision until May 1st. But in some cases, often some campuses are doing rolling admissions. A lot of schools are starting to move to that. So they're doing an admin, like a drop of admits in January. They're doing in February. They're doing in March. They're doing in April, right? So whatever that looks like, it might be a rolling process. So we want to make sure that we are paying attention. We're also paying attention to preview days, admitted student days. Your campus might call them a little bit differently. Often in the month of April is the month where students are trying to finalize between three different schools, right? They're trying to figure out, are they going to UT Arlington? Are they going to University of Texas Austin? Are they going to Nebraska, right? They're going to go to all three. They're going to check it out. Often we can take advantage of, if the campus allows us to do student activities fairs, or if we know these people are potentially coming to campus, we can give them a tour. We can invite them to a barbecue, right? We can, if your chapter has a house, have the parents come by and they can do a tour of the facility, right? How do we take advantage of opportunities when they're coming to campus? If we can make a connection before they even make a decision, DU might be one of the reasons why they end up choosing that particular institution, why they're going to go to UT Arlington, because we gave them a sense of family, a sense of home right before they decided that they didn't get that from other schools. This is something that some of the chapters, I've formerly been the chapter advisor for a chapter that heavily focused on summer recruitment. So most of you on this call, I think are their primary period is not summer. We do have some chapters that heavily start recruiting guys in January, February, and March, because as soon as they know they're coming to XYZ school, they are inviting them to things, giving them house tours. They take them out for meals, whatever that looks like. But you all can start planning ahead. So your names list going into the summer and going into the fall already has 20, 30 people, because you are starting to gather people you might find out from social media. It might be your younger sister's friend. You might not even be close to this guy, but you can add that person to the list because you know that he's friends with your sister, right? Whatever that looks like for you is that you can start planning out and start building your names list. But this is why, like I said, I'm going to emphasize this enough. A lot of chapters are afraid to ask for assistance or help in the form of referrals. Like, please use referrals. Utilize your constituents. Like, it's okay to ask your friends, your loved ones, the people you're dating, your friends on Snapchat. I'm kidding. Whatever that looks like for you is you are building your names list and asking, be like, who's coming to Seton Hall? Who do you know is coming to Seton Hall next year? Who's a male, right? And we can add those names to the list and build that before you even leave for the summer, right? And this is also where you can start building you can finalize, it's not on this slide, you can start finalize your recruitment budget going into the fall. So you already have an idea. If you're on the recruitment team, like what is your budget going? Do you have a budget for the summer? Can you do things over the summer? What does your budget look like when you start in the fall? So this is a lot of the logistics. Locations. One of the things on here, it talks about locations of brothers. One thing that my chapter really utilized for summer recruitment is that we knew where everyone was for the summer, and then we would ask brothers if they're willing to take, and we already talked about this in the summer slide. We would ask people, hey, can you take people out, right? So going to Oregon, we had guys in Los Angeles area, the Bay Area, Eugene, Portland, and Seattle. So it was all along the West Coast. And I would say each set of regionalized brothers probably did one or two things throughout the summer, but that was helping us build our names list, or reaching out and building connections with these guys before they got to campus, right? In some cases, we were able to actually sign people over the summer, but in some cases, you have to wait till they get there. But you're at least relationship building and saying, hey, DU is interested in you. Make sure you're checking out DU when you get back to campus, when you can actually go through recruitment. Like I said, every campus has different policies and rules, so we don't want you to get in trouble or get suspended because we told you to do whatever you can do over the summer. Make sure you know what you can and can't do when it comes to summer recruitment. But I think it's really, don't waste March, April, and May at the end of the school year, because there's a lot of opportunities to pick up some amazing contacts and build relationships early on. Hey.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd add is this is a great opportunity to remember that if you're getting guys on your list in the spring, it allows for you to follow up with them, as Dominic said, in the summer, whether it be where they're at. If they're coming clear, most guys, if not all of them, are going to come to an orientation at some point over the summer on campus. And so knowing and staying in touch with them on when they're going to be back and then who's in town that they can then, hey, grab a meal with. Hey, I know you're coming in town. Let me know if you need anything type of deal. As Dominic said about the regional pieces, I think some chapters, just based by the nature of the university, know where their students are coming from. They know their pockets. And so in the mid to late spring area, they are actually solidifying who their regional recruitment chair is. And so what they're doing is they're saying, hey, we know that a bulk of our population is coming from Chicago, Kansas City, and St. Louis. And so they have one guy who's living in Lawrence, Kansas, and then they have one guy who's in Chicago for the summer, and he's kind of the head of like Chicago recruitment, one guy who's head of KC recruitment, and one guy who's head of St. Louis recruitment, right? So your campus is one where you're saying, hey, I know that guys are generally coming, as Dominic said, from the Bay Area, LA, Seattle, and Portland, and I have guys who are there, whether they're living at home working, they have an internship. Mid to late summer is a great opportunity to solidify who those guys are, get them trained up on what that means, so that they can be successful in the summer.
Perfect. Fantastic. All right. So as we already talked about that, that's kind of the zones. Spring quarter, unless Cal Poly or Oregon State's on the call, we can cover that. Looks like a lot of that, what it looks like is repeats of early spring and mid to late spring. You just have 3 opportunities to recruit throughout the year as opposed to 2. Like I said, but if you really focus on 365, it's not just viewing it as 2 chances. It's a kind of 365 opportunity. So we want to make sure, if you're not doing this, building that names list, whatever it looks like to have an active living document, right? Someone is paying attention to that. Someone is taking people off of it. If you know they joined another chapter, they know they joined your chapter, right? What does that look like to continue to have an active names list that you're encouraging people that any opportunity, any club or organization, some chapters are really creative. Some chapters require guys to be involved in another organization outside of DU, right? I don't think it's a bad idea. However, like I said, we want to force that, but I think it's a great opportunity for them to get out of the DU bubble and just meet other people, whatever that looks like for you all, whether it means joining specific strategic student organizations. Some chapters have like made sure guys sign up to be orientation leaders. People are RAs. Like what are the positions on campus or the leadership roles that have heavy engagement with potential new members and freshmen, right? Whatever that looks like for you all, there's some good opportunities and be creative what that looks like. I said be open and creative with recruitment positions and timelines. I mentioned before, if you bump up the timeline for elections, if you have 2 VP recruitments and then you have some key deputies underneath that person, someone who, like I mentioned before, someone who just does logistics, someone who just does social media, whatever that looks like for you all, is you have the creativity. The fraternity doesn't have, yes, we might know what your local bylaws and constitution might say, but as an overall fraternity, like I said, your chapter is not going to get in trouble if you alter how you work with your position to best fit your chapter or associate chapter, right? If you need 2 people to do recruitment, like I said, we want to support you with that. And honestly, some of the best recruiting chapters I've ever worked with have always had 2 people doing recruitment, but those 2 people had very specific, distinct job descriptions. So they weren't doing the same thing. They worked in tandem, but one was doing something very clearly like logistics or behind the scenes stuff. The other person was much more managing the names list and outreach, right? Whatever that looks like, we can help you with that. I already talked about building relationships with classmates, coworkers, student organizations, whatever that looks like for you. Utilizing your referrals, staying current on social media. As Hayden said, class of 2027. Some campuses are still using Facebook to communicate with your freshmen. If you're one of those campuses, don't be afraid that, yes, you might be like, Facebook, what's that? But it's an opportunity to like log on to that and see what your campuses are doing, specifically if there's class of 2027 groups. But like I said, whatever that looks like for you, you can start doing that now if you're not already doing that. But what does that engagement look like? Anything from your end, Hayden?
I don't think so. I think the last piece is just consistently reminding guys like everyone has a role in the chapter. I think 365 allows for that to be really successful. I think Dominic and I were just talking yesterday about the fact that there's the guys who do really well in like the normal, what you would think recruitment is, which is just like getting guys excited, getting them interested in the organization, all of those things. And there's guys who are really good in kind of the informal, let me close the deal, let me go to a meal with you, these less kind of social aspects. Like 365 recruitment allows for everyone in the chapter to shine in the way that fits best, because if you don't, you're really just focused, you're really just putting the guys who are really good in that kind of 1 to 2 week, being very social, bringing guys in, they're going to feel really comfortable there. But the guys who may feel better in the more intimate, like one-on-one, two-on-one settings, don't have that opportunity. If you're just focusing on a 1 to 2 week kind of normal fall recruitment, spring recruitment piece, but in a 365 piece, it kind of is the best of both worlds, both for those guys who can be really social and out there, and those guys who can say, hey, I'm more than happy to go get a meal, more than happy to play Madden with guys on a weeknight, more than happy to go to the library, go to the gym, all the things that make that a lot easier. So I think just keeping that in mind, that's really important. And I think 365 allows for all of that to happen.
And that's how we utilize our seniors when I was in the chapter. I was tapped often by our recruitment chairs to say, like, if you know enough about the guys in the chapter, our recruitment team was trained and set up enough where they would be like, okay, I remember getting a call being like, we met the mini version of you, Dominic, and we need you to go to dinner with him, with the two of us and this kid, because he is you, right? And I was like, what? But like I said, that was our way. If your seniors often want to be involved in recruitment, but feel like you're going to laugh, too old to help with recruitment, because, there's 3 years older than the freshman going through. But what are ways to best utilize? And like I said, everyone can have a role, but often your seniors being used in the one-on-one settings or closing the deal and really sharing the stories of why they joined the fraternity can really be helpful. And that's how we really utilized our seniors in the recruitment process, was through informal recruitment, free agency, whatever you all want to call it. So, all right. So, I'll go through this quickly because I know we've gone a little bit. Like I said, we're about ready to wrap up. So we want to allow chapters to be recruiting constantly instead of just for one semester. We've already talked about that. We want to expand the outreach to the students' P&Ms. Any unaffiliated male is a potential new member, right? So even if you think that person would never join your former roommate you think he's anti-Greek, like I said, there are people out there that often I've seen, like I said, turn the corner because they realize that, like, hey, this is a great opportunity, and maybe I actually never thought about fraternity. I think there's an old adage that people say that often people don't join because they were never asked, or they didn't know how to join because the recruitment process was unclear when they got to campus, right? So it's okay to take a sophomore, a junior, right? Some chapters I know have taken seniors, and they're some of the best members, right? They might only be in the chapter for a year, but remember, this is a lifetime opportunity. So you don't have to limit when that person joins or just taking freshmen. I think often chapters just focus on that. And recruiting, like I said, we don't want you to put limits on yourself. Don't put mythical caps on how many people you can take. If we're recruiting, if we have high quality guys that want to join DU and fit our values and they really match up with what we're looking for, then don't set a mythical ceiling or cap on yourself. Like I said, and we just want to set you all up for success. Recruitment goals are helpful. Recruitment also is the lifeblood of the chapter, right? We want to make sure that you all realize that is going to be that's what we saw last year, where some chapters threw the towel in, a few chapters threw the towel in because they just didn't want to recruit anymore, right? Like I said, these are good chapters that were, had a large graduating class. But we want to make sure, though, that it's not impossible. Like I said, we talked about the Boise State example, but a lot of smaller chapters can rebound. A couple of guys can make the difference to really motivate the chapter and just get out there and be involved and be engaged, right? And get people motivated to just continue to add to the chapter. Perfect. Okay. So how do you want to amplify DU? Real quick, I wanted to just let you guys know. So I will send out coming from me, you'll get the recruitment goals. You'll find out who your recruitment coach is. If you want to, I just want to double check anyone who has not put their first name, last name, and chapter in the chat box. If you could do that, because that's how we're taking attendance. So I know some people joined a little bit later, but if you've not put your first name, last name, and chapter or associate chapter in the chat box, if you could do that. The next session for Amplify will be next Tuesday. I know I sent that out in the initial schedule, so it'll be Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern as well. And what we're going to do real quickly. So on Tuesday, we're going to cover social media and marketing. So how do you best utilize social media? So those chapters are struggling with that. And trust me, we know there's a lot of chapters that just don't know how to utilize it for recruitment. So we're going to have our communications department work with all of you. And we're going to have the first part of, we have a unique opportunity to learn from someone who has actually been in collegiate athletic recruiting for the last 15 years, right? So this person was a college athlete, but now for the last 15 years has been focusing on recruiting specifically hockey players for men's and women's athletic recruiting. But we're going to learn, it's going to be a two-parter. So the first part will be next Tuesday, and then the following week we're going to learn from our Boise State guys and learn for the second part of our session from our collegiate recruiter. So some really cool opportunities. We're mixing up the content this year for Amplify. So we're going to be doing a couple different things, different sessions that we've done previously. This session that we just did tonight, Hayden, I know it's important, and it's things that often where we see the biggest issues is when we show up to a chapter in October and they've completely given up for recruitment. We just want you to stay motivated and continue to think about recruitment throughout the year. It doesn't, like as Hayden said, you're not giving out bids 365, but you're continuing to build those relationships. So questions for any of you? Questions from the group? We can also stick around as well. Or specifically, if you are, like I said, you can also run this by your recruitment coach as well. But like I said, we'll see you next Tuesday. I will recommend too, though, if you have other people on your recruitment team that you want to be part of, you can send them the link, I also recommend that you also have them register as well, so we can get them a coach as well. So it's possible that obviously there's two. I'm just going to use Wichita for as an example. You and your other recruitment chair can get coached together, right? So whatever that looks like, the recruitment coaches can work with like a team. So if you want us to zoom in with your recruitment team, that's totally fine though. But definitely tell other people in your chapter, associate chapter, that they can join. We're not limiting it just to the people who registered. So I think we're putting out the links, the Zoom links, but you feel free to forward this and say, hey, the more the merrier. Everyone on the recruitment committee can take part in these webinars moving forward. So, but we're at least the people who registered are going to be the ones who'll get direct contact about the recruitment coaching process. So, perfect. Questions? All right, I'll pause there. Kate, anything else from your end? Okay.
Well, good.
All right, perfect. Here is my email. Also, if you need a quick response from me, that is my cell phone number. Yes, I'm putting my cell phone number on, but that's my job. So if you need anything from me, feel free. You can text me and be like, Dominic, blah, 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 blah. Like I said, this will be recorded. And the future sessions will be recorded as well. So if there's any of the sessions that you have to leave early or you can't make, they will be up on the website. Like I said, I need to double check with Ashley how quickly she can get these up on the website, but we will be recording these. But if that's it, I will stop sharing. Thank you, everyone. And I appreciate you participating. So Hayden and I will stick around for a couple of minutes. But yeah, thank you again.